Hey guys, it's Sherry Vegas and welcome back to my channel. So in this week's tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can create your own resin geode using a stained glass effect. This tutorial is part of my latest online course, all to do with how to use resin to create beautiful geode-inspired artworks. In this course, there is over 10 units with 9 different demo pieces explaining how I created each different piece and all the different tricks and techniques that I use. The medium that I'm going to be working on to create this piece is an acrylic sheet. I get these custom cut, but I know Artist Till Death and Countertop Couture also do sell these. What I like about these is because it's an acrylic sheet, it's going to be clear. So when I do any sort of translucent resin or alcohol inks on it, you're going to be able to see through it. You can also make these into some really cool lights because the light can shine through if you put some LEDs behind it. With these acrylic sheets, they do have this protective layer on both sides. When you first start and you're creating your design, I recommend just pulling off the top so that way you can still protect the back. And then when you do your layer of resin, when you pull your backing off, it will take all of the drips off with it. For the first layer to this piece, we're going to be doing an alcohol ink base. So you can either leave it on your table or you can put it up on cups to get started with, because the next layer will be resin. For this piece, I'm going to be sticking to 3 colors. So I've got a teal Pinata ink. I've also got a Pinata Brass, which is one of their mixatives. And from Ranger, I have got Evening. You're also going to need some alcohol. This one is from Bunnings, which is a hardware store, and it's isopropyl alcohol. It's 99% proof. I've just poured out some of my alcohol into my cup, and I'm going to add a few drops of my teal. I'm just going to put my heat gun on the low heat setting. I've added some teal into my alcohol ink, and then I'm also going to be dropping in some of my brass and some of my darker blue and work in little sections and slowly start to create my pattern. With your brass, just note that less is more. It can be really strong and overpower and does tend to like to clump together, so spread it out when you are working with it. So this first layer is done. It's a little bit hard to tell what it's actually going to look like because obviously it's got the brown backing to it, and right now it just looks like a little bit of a mess. But because we are trying to emulate like that crystal pattern, I really love like all of the intricate details and how organic it's looking. I'm so tempted to just pull it a little bit back so I can actually have like a better look. I've tried to keep the sort of navy blue more towards the center and then the teal and the gold going outwards. I am going to be letting this this set for a little bit, and then I'm going to come back and give it a spray, a sealing spray, before I start doing my resin top coat. I've left this to dry for about half an hour. Because we are using alcohol, it will dry quite fast because it evaporates. Now I just need to seal it. This is a really important step before you do add your resin. If you add your resin directly onto alcohol inks, it will reactivate it and can also change the color. So you need to get yourself a spray varnish. What I like to use is the Duramax. You want to look for one that doesn't contain alcohol, because obviously if you spray something with alcohol in, it will reactivate all of these inks because that's the medium we used. So you need to make sure you just get one that doesn't have that and wait till it's touch dry. I normally give it about 2 coats, really light. You don't want to hold the spray in any place. You just want to give it a really light coating. Let that dry. It takes about probably 15 minutes, and then do your second coat before it's time to add your resin. Now that the board is sealed, it is time to do the coat of resin. I've mixed up 200 mils of resin. I'm using the Barnes epoxy glass, which is a 1:1 ratio resin. So 1 part is your resin and 1 part is your hardener. I've mixed that up, and I'm going to keep most of it clear because obviously I don't want to cover all the detail I've done in the alcohol inks, but I have made some as a sparkly blue resin. So for that, I've just mixed in this navy as well as this shimmer blue powder. I've mixed those together, and that's given me a really beautiful deep sparkle shimmer. I am going to be covering the majority of this in just clear resin, and the clear resin is also going to help me attach all of my like sort of crystal pieces as well, because resin is a really strong glue. So by adding your clear resin down and then adding your crystals on top, it's going to glue them all into place. So just with my stick, I kind of like to just help it spread out. Resin self-levels, so by just kind of guiding it along its way, it's going to naturally want to level out, but this is just kind of speeding up that process because it's a bit slow. Now, just with my blowtorch, I'm going to come along and pop any of those little resin bubbles, the little micro bubbles that are in the resin. With the blue resin, my intention is to place it around the center where I've got most of that blue alcohol ink, and then use my heat gun kind of to blow it across and spread it going out across the rest of my geode shape board. And once again, I'm just going to use my blowtorch to add a little bit of heat to this blue, so that way it's going to glide across easier. I've just added this attachment to my heat gun. This is going to help me direct all the air and heat and help me spread this out across the rest of the clear resin. It's really important to put your clear resin down first, so that way the blue resin has somewhere to glide across to. This resin has sat for about 20 minutes, so this is kind of how it's going to stay. I've got some really beautiful lacing throughout this piece, and I haven't added too much blue so it hasn't fully covered what's underneath, but just creating another dimension, some more layering, and just creates a bit of depth. I do have some glass chips that I'm going to add in around the center now, and because it's already got that coating of resin, these chips will just stick into the center. Now just be careful, I prefer to apply these without gloves on just because I find it easier, but they are glass so they can cut, so you just need to be careful when applying them. And also careful not to get any resin on yourself if you're not going to wear gloves for this part. Because not all of the glass chips that I have placed down are going to be touching the resin completely, I am just going to go over with some clear resin. And I'm just going to coat those over the top so that way they all get really locked into place once the resin does dry. With the last little bit of resin, I've added in some of the Barnes Pale Gold powder, and I'm just going to outline everywhere that I put the crystals. So my resin is getting close to that gelling point, so it's a perfect time to just go around my crystals because it's not going to spread out or move too much because I just want it to outline those shapes. And then the final step before I finish this part is just to add a little bit of heat to get that gold to expand out slightly. I am just going to add a little bit of brass from Pinata, which is an alcohol ink, just into the crystals. For the last step in creating this really beautiful, gorgeous stained glass geode, we're going to do some glitter line detailing. So I've mixed up another batch of resin, the exact same resin that I've used throughout this whole piece. And with my glitter lines, I like to make it quite thick and chunky. So I'm going to be doing like 40% glitter to 60% resin. Obviously, when you add pigment into resin, it should be like 5 to 10% pigment to resin. But for this, because we're going to be wanting it to be quite thick, I am changing that ratio. So I wouldn't recommend doing this ratio with anything else than trying to do line detail. So I like to use just a really beautiful glitter that's going to match in. You can use whatever kind you like, but you do want to do quite a big ratio difference. I'm even adding in some more of that gold pigment powder just to make it super rich and really dense, full of gold and no clear resin. We're down to the final few steps, so I'm just going to turn this over to remove the paper backing. Be careful when you do turn it over because we do have these chips sticking out that you probably want to keep it up on cups so you're not putting this directly to your table. So I'm just going to turn it over like that and just find an area and start peeling off the backing. If you have an area where the resin drips are not coming off, what you can always do is use your heat gun and add a little bit of heat to that area, and then they should be able to peel back. What this does, by adding heat to those drips, it just softens that resin, which makes it more flexible and allows you to pull it back. Now the backing is fully off. You can really see how beautiful this effect is using the acrylic geode. You get a gorgeous translucent effect, and it does really remind me of like stained glass. I think it's super beautiful, and we've got so much detail and layering coming through with the alcohol inks and the resin. Now the last step that you can do is get a gold pen and add some more line detail. That's completely personal preference if you want to really create more effects to this and create some more patterns. Otherwise you could always leave it at this stage. One of my favorite gold pens to use is the 18 karat gold leafing pen. Otherwise you could always mix up some of that gold pigment with some varnish and create effects like that. So you can just start by tracing any sort of pattern or shape. I recommend letting it dry and doing 2 coats in each area, just because the resin is so slick, the pen does have a harder time gripping, but that's a completely personal step if you want to add some more line work or not. Thank you guys so much for watching this tutorial. If you are new to my channel, please do consider subscribing, and don't forget to hit that notification bell as I post new resin art videos every single week. And if you haven't already, I do have 2 online courses. One, resin art for beginners. If you are brand new to resin art, I'll add the discount code below because there's a discount for everyone that follows me on YouTube. And if you already have that one, you get an even bigger discount for the next one. And I have my latest course all about resin geode, so if you found this helpful, you'll probably really enjoy that one as well. And don't forget to give this video a big like if this has helped you out. It helps YouTube know to share this to more people. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Sherry Vegas, and in my newest online course, I'm going to show you all of the tips, tricks, and techniques that you need to know to be able to create beautiful resin pieces inspired by crystals. In this course, I will cover from absolute beginner to advanced pouring methods in the 8 different step-by-step tutorials. To get creative with me, just click on the link.